The Galactic Council chamber fell into an uncomfortable silence as Ambassador Marcus Chen rose from his seat. Around the circular amphitheater, representatives from 47 different species watched with varying degrees of curiosity, skepticism, and barely concealed hostility. The human delegation had been the subject of intense debate for the past 3 rotations, ever since their application for council membership had been submitted. "The chair recognizes the human representative," announced Prelate Vorthak, his 4 mandibles clicking with obvious reluctance. The insectoid leader's compound eyes reflected the chamber's bioluminescent lighting as he gestured toward Chen with one of his 6 arms. Chen stood slowly, deliberately. He was unremarkable by human standards. Average height, graying hair, wearing a simple dark suit that looked almost primitive compared to the elaborate environmental suits and biomodifications of the other delegates. But something in his posture, in the way he carried himself, made several of the more predatory species shift uncomfortably in their seats. "Honored delegates," Chen began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic dampeners. "I understand there are concerns about humanity's temperament." A harsh bark of laughter echoed from the Korthani section. War Admiral Scrax, whose species had conquered 17 systems in the past century, leaned forward with predatory interest. His razor-sharp teeth gleamed as he spoke. "Concerns? Human, your species has been in space for less than 2 centuries, and you've already triggered 3 separate conflicts. Your military doctrines are barbaric, your expansion aggressive, and your weapons—" He paused, searching for words. "Unnecessarily creative." Chen nodded thoughtfully. "You're referring to the Proxima incident, the Kepler station conflict, and the recent misunderstanding with the hegemony scouts." "Misunderstanding?" The voice belonged to General Thys of the Serpentine Dominion, her serpentine form coiling with agitation. "Your forces destroyed an entire patrol fleet." "After they fired on a civilian transport," Chen replied, his tone remaining perfectly level. "But you're correct about our weapons being creative. We tend to approach problems differently than most species." Prelate Vorthak's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of nervousness among his kind. "The Council has reviewed your military history, human. The creativity General Thys mentions is precisely what concerns us. Chemical weapons, biological warfare, nuclear armaments, kinetic bombardment, psychological warfare." He trailed off. "Yes," Chen said simply. "We've used all of those, and more." The chamber erupted in shocked chatter. Several delegates began speaking at once, their translators creating a cacophony of overlapping voices. Chen waited patiently for the noise to subside, his hands clasped behind his back, his expression unchanged. War Admiral Scrax slammed a clawed fist on his console. "You admit to being a species of warmongers. How can the Council even consider—" "We are not warmongers," Chen interrupted, and for the first time his voice carried a subtle edge that cut through the chamber like a blade. The temperature seemed to drop several degrees. "We are survivors." Something in that single word, survivors, sent an involuntary shiver through the assembled delegates. The Korthani War Admiral, who had personally led charges against enemy positions, found himself pressing back into his seat. General Thys, whose species had evolved from apex predators that could swallow prey whole, unconsciously coiled tighter. Chen continued, his voice returning to its previous calm cadence, but somehow that quiet tone was more unsettling than any roar. "You see, honored delegates, most of your species evolved on worlds where they were the dominant predator from the beginning. The Korthani ruled their world's food chain for millions of years. The Serpentine Dominion developed on a planet where they were the undisputed apex species. Even the Thakari," he nodded toward a delegation of massive bear-like creatures, "evolved in an environment where their size and strength made them unquestionable rulers of their domain." He paused, letting his words sink in. Humanity did not. The chamber was dead silent now. Every eye, compound and otherwise, was fixed on the unremarkable human standing calmly in their midst. "We evolved alongside saber-toothed cats with fangs longer than your arm," Chen said conversationally. "Cave bears that could tear through stone. pack hunters with intelligence that rivaled our own. We shared our world with creatures that could outrun us, outclimb us, outswim us, and outfight us in almost every conceivable way. His voice remained steady, almost gentle, but there was something building beneath it, something that made even the most confident predators in the room feel suddenly exposed. We were prey, delegates. For hundreds of thousands of years we were prey. We survived not because we were the strongest or the fastest or the most venomous. We survived because we learned to be more vicious than anything that hunted us. More persistent, more creative, more ruthlessly adaptive. War Admiral Scrax found his voice, though it came out rougher than intended. That was your past. You've evolved beyond such. Have we? Chen asked quietly, and the question hung in the air like a death sentence. When the Proxima pirates captured the colony ship Endeavor, do you know what we did? No one answered. We didn't just destroy them. We hunted down every ship in their fleet, tracked their supply lines back to their home base, and systematically dismantled their entire operation. Not because they were a threat, by then they weren't, but because they had hurt our people. And when you hurt our people, we don't just fight back, we make sure it never happens again. The silence stretched on. Chen's expression never changed, never became threatening or aggressive. He simply stood there speaking in the same calm, reasonable tone one might use to discuss the weather. The Kepler station conflict? A simple territorial dispute that escalated because someone decided human civilians were acceptable casualties. We disagreed. Permanently. General Theiss had gone completely still, every predatory instinct she possessed screaming at her to not move, not attract attention. The hegemony scouts? They were conducting research on human settlements, taking samples of our children. For just a moment, something flickered behind Chen's eyes. Something cold and vast and utterly implacable. We took exception to that. He looked around the chamber, meeting the gaze of each delegate in turn. When he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried to every corner of the room. You call us warmongers. You fear our weapons, our tactics, our willingness to escalate conflicts. But understand this, we don't fight because we love war. We fight because 10,000 generations of evolution taught us that the universe is full of things that want to hurt us, and the only way to protect what we love is to be more terrifying than anything else out there. He straightened slightly, his hands still clasped behind his back. Humanity seeks membership in this council not as conquerors, but as guardians. We offer our protection to any who would accept it, and our friendship to any who would offer theirs in return. But we also offer fair warning. We are very, very good at surviving, and we've learned that sometimes the best way to survive is to make sure that those who would threaten innocent life learn to fear the darkness. The chamber remained silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, Prelate Vorthak's mandibles clicked in what his species considered a gesture of deep respect. The motion to accept humanity into the Galactic Council, he said carefully, is hereby called to vote. The vote was unanimous. Later, as delegates filed out of the chamber, War Admiral Scrax approached Chen, the massive Korthani warrior who had never shown deference to any being, offered what his species considered a bow of acknowledgement. Human, he said quietly. I have fought across 17 systems. I have faced down battleships and conquered worlds. But I have never been more grateful that someone was on my side than I am right now. Chen smiled, the first expression other than calm neutrality he had shown all day. It was a warm, genuine smile that reached his eyes. That's very kind of you to say, War Admiral. I think we're going to get along just fine. As the Korthani warrior walked away, he couldn't shake the feeling that Marcus Chen's smile had somehow been the most terrifying thing of all.